Welcome to Moments with Marianne. I'm so delighted we're spending this time here today. We have an amazing show coming right up. Our first guest is Michael Alden, and he's here today to talk to us about his new book, Blueprint to Business. So Michael shares his years of experience along with top founders and entrepreneurs in offering practical advice from a real-world perspective. So let's welcome to the show, Michael.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really, really excited to be here.
Yeah, it's always such a joy to have you on the show. Last time we had such a fabulous time, and here we are again today talking about your new book, Blueprint to Business. So, gosh, I mean, what was the inspiration behind this book?
Well, first of all, again, thanks again for having me on. I appreciate it. It's kind of interesting how it came together. Like my last book, 5% More, I didn't really have an idea or a plan to even write another book, but, be honest with you, it started with a frustration level. I mean, I was frustrated with seeing, all these, Instagram and Snapchat and Facebook, quote, entrepreneurs out there, telling everybody how successful they were or trying to teach people how to be successful in business, and they've never done anything in business other than maybe watching, a webinar or a YouTube video. And I'm like, these guys, they're out there, they're providing misinformation, and they're really kind of, doing this country and this world a disservice by trying to perpetrate like they are an entrepreneur. And I was like, man, I've done some pretty awesome stuff. I've made some huge mistakes. I've made some small mistakes, and I've done had a lot of micro successes in between. And I'm like, I'm only 42 years old, but we've done a lot of great things here. And I feel as though that the information in Blueprint to Business is realistic. It's relatable, and it's something that the average everyday person could understand.
Well, I feel like, I was reading your book and just loved it. As an entrepreneur myself, when I first started, I did the same thing. I made all the wrong mistakes. If it was wrong, I did it. And then I learned how to do things a different way. But no one gave us like an idea of like how things should look. And gosh, you know what? I kind of look back and it's like I think every manager should be handing out, if they're in insurance or real estate or whatever, they're branching out and doing their own business, they need to read this book first before they get started.
Yeah, I mean, whether you're an entrepreneur running a business yourself or whether you're, the CEO or whether you're actually someone who's working for the business, I feel as though that it actually is a great thing for your business to teach everybody how to be an entrepreneur. So when everyone has that entrepreneur mentality like we have, that entrepreneur mentality like we, again, do the things that most people won't. And when you have employees working for you that are doing the same thing, your business is going to thrive. See, a lot of people, I think, make the mistake of like, well, I don't want to teach my employees, how to really be an entrepreneur. They're going to leave. Well, that may happen. But along the way, they're going to add a lot of great value to your business. So the principles in Blueprint to Business can be applied to anybody in any situation in the workaday world. Well,
and I think people having this information, they might actually care more about the business they're working with, understanding how difficult it is.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. A lot of people, they don't care about the business. I always tell people, like, I care more about my, I always used to say, like, I use other call centers, in my world, and I use other, third-party vendors in my world, but yet we do everything ourselves as well. And we always did better than everybody else. But some of these, like, for instance, like call centers, I said, these are professional call centers. This is all they do. And I would be like, why are we better than them? There's really no reason why we should be better than them. And then when I started to really think about it, we've trained our staff so that they do care about the business. And like I always say to people, I care more than you do. So when you care more, you're going to do better, and you're going to ultimately provide more value for the business, and you're ultimately going to provide more value for your boss and everything. And then you're also going to increase your own what I like to call net worth, just because you do care a little bit more. So entrepreneurs, we care sometimes almost too much. I mean, I talk a little bit about caring too much in the book, but, caring is a very, very important trait that you need again, regardless of where you are in the workforce.
Mm-hmm. Well, and so kind of getting down to kind of brass tacks, what is the reality of being an entrepreneur?
That's a great question. What is the reality of being an entrepreneur? Well, the reality of being an entrepreneur is not what you see on Instagram. It's not what you see on Snapchat. It's not what you see on Twitter. It's not what you see on Facebook. And what I mean by that is, you see all these guys and gals out there. It's mostly guys. They're showing you in their rented Ferraris, or they're at an Airbnb in the Hollywood Hills, and they're acting like it's their home. Okay, or they're showing you actual currency, dollars, but they realize it's actually not even real money, okay? The reality of an entrepreneur is that it's not easy. It's difficult. Every single day is a struggle, and I even sometimes struggle. And I was just talking to one of my executives. I'm like, man, why is it always so hard? I used to say that to my mother when I was a kid, like, Ma, why is it always so hard? And what I realized is life is just not easy. You can make it easier, okay, by learning certain things and doing certain things, but the reality of an entrepreneur is not what's really out there. Now, the lifestyle of an entrepreneur, the lifestyle that you can build as a result of caring, really about your business more than everybody else, about, doing the things that most people want. When you build that foundation, when you build that business, then the lifestyle of going places and, getting in jets and buying the nice cars and all that other stuff, that takes time. That can be a reality, but it's not going to happen today. It's not going to happen tomorrow, especially if you're just starting. It's going to take years. And when you understand that's going to take years, then your mentality changes, and you're like, okay, this is the life I chose. And by the way, there are a lot of sacrifices, and people don't even understand what that means. People always talk about the grind, and most people have no idea what that means, the true grind. Meaning, I'll tell you something right now. I literally just took the trash out of my own office just before I came down here into my studio. Okay, these are the things that most people won't do. I'm the CEO of a multi-million-dollar company that's generated hundreds of millions of dollars, and I just took my own trash out. And you don't understand that these are the things you need. Why did I take my own trash out? Well, I fired my cleaning guy because he wasn't doing a good job. So what am I going to do? Let the trash pile up? No, I'm going to take my own trash out. So these are the types of things that the realities of being an entrepreneur.
There's some great importance in knowing, and this is not really relative to the trash thing, but just knowing how each position in your business functions. Because when things do happen, like someone not meeting a certain level or criteria or standard of work, you understand that it doesn't take 5 hours to do, like social media posting or whatever the case is,
It's a great point, and I learned that as well early on in my career, that everyone at my company, we all have learned about each and every department. In other words, the fulfillment department has worked in customer service. The customer service department has worked in fulfillment. The accounting department takes phone calls. Some of them don't like it, The assistants are taking phone calls. They're taking customer service phone calls. We're all learning how to do sales. We're all learning how to do the social media. We're all even learning about, the IT side of things. Now, we're not all experts in those particular aspects of the business, but we all understand how it works, and it gives you a broader perspective on, okay, so if you're in customer service and someone calls in and you worked in shipping a couple weeks ago, you understand that like mechanically what happens when that package, goes out the door or comes back for a return. So you have a better perspective, and you can, again, provide a better experience for the customer. And the same thing in sales. Like, I've had to, fire and hire sales, hundreds of salespeople throughout the years. And sometimes when you fire them because they just don't get it, like they might have gone through our training, but they really just didn't pay attention. And so they're doing their own thing. And they're doing their own thing because they think it's better. And we have a system, and you need to follow the system. The most successful businesses in the world, they have systems, they have procedures, they have processes that work over time. So that's why I always have all my executives and every employee through my company go through a day or two, sometimes it's even a week in a particular department, so you understand what is really going on. And then here's the other thing too. When my accountant takes phone calls, okay? He's got his master's, he's a CPA. When he takes phone calls, he has a different perspective than I have. He might say, well, Mike, geez, it doesn't make sense to put this upsell right here on the script path. Maybe if you change it, or maybe if you change the shipping price here, or maybe if you just use this word. My attorney, okay, my in-house lawyer, doesn't feel good about taking sales calls because God forbid he says the wrong thing, right? But he does it because he has a different perspective. He can truly understand when he's editing the scripts, when he's editing our advertisements, he understands the entire process, so he adds great value, to the overall company.
You must be getting some insane and intensely valuable feedback from that happening.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And sometimes, though, I mean, we've been doing this for so long, and my core group has really kind of been with us for close to 10 years. And, even I, still to this day, I'll jump on the phones and say, why did this? And sometimes we forget, too, okay? We're all human. That's the other thing, too, in Blueprint to Business. We forget. Even when we put processes in place, I'll say that, we have a very, everyone has a funnel, right? So we have a very, very, detailed, dialed-in funnel of what happens from the second someone calls us or the second someone goes to our website and all the different paths they go down. And sometimes things break or people just forget. And so I'll say, hey, are we still sending out postcards? Oh, well, we're not sending out postcards. Why? I don't know. What do you mean you don't know? Well, it just broke. So when you get when you get involved into the front line and really kind of dig deep with everybody and everyone at the company, you truly, again, have a better appreciation of how things work. And so it's good for any business to do that. And every successful business that I've ever learned about, they all do it. They all have everybody work in different departments so that you can truly have a holistic view of how the entire business works. And then, again, make positive changes. I mean, we do it all the time. And as the world evolves, as business evolves, it's even more crucial to really kind of figure out, like, hey, what are we doing? I know we did this yesterday, but should we still be doing it? And if we were doing this yesterday, maybe we can do it a little bit better today because this new technology was just developed. Let's see how that integrates into our process.
Well, and you touched on something just a little bit ago, and I think we should really dive into it, is success being something that can be replicated. I think a lot of times when you talk about when we get new people that come in, new salespeople, they think, hey, well, my way is better than the highway, and not really realizing that what's been put in place is something that has taken time to develop.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great thing. Again, success can be duplicated. And I was just talking about this recently with somebody else, is that, recreating the wheel is not a smart way to conduct business. Now, you have people out there that are true visionaries like Elon Musk or Steve Jobs that are really kind of changing the way how our future looks. And those people are, few and far in between. But success can be duplicated. In other words, taking a look at how others have done things and making it your own. Okay, I'm not talking about knocking stuff off because there are a lot of people out there that like to do that or just totally copy others. I'm talking about, hey, look, let's look at some of the successful people throughout time. Let's look at some of the successful people right now, what they're doing. Try and emulate it. Make it your own. Make it better. When I talked about this, I think last time I was on your show, I've done stand-up comedy, or I did it for like 3 years. And I was getting into it. It was a whole long story. I was getting into it. I was really loving it. And I had this great bit, and I thought it was really funny. I mean, I performed at the LA Improv. I mean, I was like really getting into it. And I had this great bit. And then I watched the movie, This Is 40. And there was a scene where it was exactly my bit. And I was freaking out. I had never seen the movie, and I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, when did it come out? And all this is, I start calling all my comedian friends. I'm like, guys, this is nuts. Like, I know I did this before the movie. And one of my comedian friends said to me, Mike, it's already been done. I said, what do you mean it's already been done? He says, whatever it is you can think of, it's already been done by somebody else. It's just your take on it. It's your perspective on it. So when we talk about success, okay, even my book, Blueprint to Business, or my previous books, 5% More, Ask More, Get More, a lot of the stuff I learned from other people, I made it my own, I made it better, and I had a different perspective on it so that maybe it can relate to you. I was at I spoke at this event, and Harvey Mackay was there, and he sold like 80 million books, and he flew in his own jet, and he's like, he's in his early 80s and super, super successful guy, very, very, and he got on stage and he said something profound. He said, there is nothing new in the world of success. And everyone was like, and there was like billionaires in the room. Like everyone's like, whoa, hold on, we got all this technology. He says, no, there's nothing new in the world of success. There's no new pill. There's no new technology. Nothing has really changed in the world of success. There are things that are adding and can maybe enhance it or maybe help you, kind of do the things that you need to do in order to be successful. But nothing has changed. It's just, kind of where we're at in history and how you can evolve and maybe make it a little bit better. So when you're looking at your business, take a look at your competitors, okay? Take a look at what they're doing. If they're doing it better than you, there's probably a reason why, and there's nothing wrong with saying, well, you know what, let me look at their process. Listen, I used to infiltrate companies myself with some of my other business. I would call in. I would order their products. I would, I'd return their products, and just to see how they were doing it, and then maybe make it better, or maybe, say, hey, those guys are doing it better than me. I can't really, I can't really change it, but I can certainly implement what they're doing and just make it better. There's nothing wrong with it. Every business in the world does. And I tell you, I had a real hard time kind of thinking about this. I'm like, oh man, I don't want to, I don't want to be a copycat. I don't want to knock people off. It's not that. It's success can be duplicated.
Well, and I think when people get beyond that whole thing, you can appreciate another company for doing such good work in one area, but it doesn't mean that your messaging is the same or you're doing the same thing. It could be, like you're taking how they have their customer service department, and maybe they're stellar at doing, at their customer service, and just learning from that to make things better.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have an outbound division of my company. And when we first started, we didn't have an outbound. I have a dedicated group of, highly compensated, six-figure, all they're doing is just making outbound phone calls all day long. And when we first started almost 10 years ago, we didn't have an outbound division. We didn't even understand how the whole outbound world worked. And we had a third-party vendor, really pitch us hard on, hey, look, I could probably increase your bottom line and increase your profitability by like, a few $1,000,000 a year. And we're like, well, that's crazy. We're like, nah, we don't think it. But we gave it a shot. And so we started, allowing him to essentially call our customers and then, and build value and sell them other stuff. And sure enough, the bottom line increased by a few million. And then he said, look, I'm even going to show you how to do it. And we were like, why? That's kind of crazy. He says, look, you know what? You could probably do it better yourself because these are your own products, like we talked about earlier, because we care a little bit more. So he essentially kind of, put himself out of work with us. But the reason why he did is because he was so busy because he was really good at what he did, and he just showed us, how to do it. So he was adding great value, and we're like, wow, this is something that we can do. So he blatantly, in fact, we do the same thing. So I have it's come full circle. We have clients that we outbound phone calls for. Even in this day and age, outbound phone calls is still a great way to make money. And so we're outbounding for other clients. And I was just on the phone with one of them. Actually, he read my second book, 5% More. That's how the whole thing happened. And I said, look, I'll show you how to do it. They don't even have a call center. They're all digital guys. But we're like, look, we'll do it for you. And then we'll show you how. And why would we do that? Well, we're adding value, and then we're building a relationship. And that guy that I'm talking about that started doing outbound calls for us, he also has a separate business in my world, and we've done additional business as a result of that. So he's a very, very smart businessman. It might have seemed like he was putting himself out of a job, but he was just building value, cultivating the relationship, and what I talk about in the book, cultivating our connection capital.
Mm-hmm. That's a big thing. And, and a lot of times people don't look outside the box to see that.
Yeah, the classic, looking outside. It's hard, to sometimes say, well, hold on a second here. I'm going to show maybe a client, how to do it themselves. Why would I do that? Because they're thinking about the bigger picture. And the other thing, if you're really good at what you're doing, you're so busy that sometimes even having too many clients, you spread yourself too thin, and then you start providing a disservice for other people. So it's actually not even a bad thing. So you say, look, I'm going to show you how to do this yourself. And then they do it. And by the way, the same guy that I'm talking about in particular, he not only, when I say we're doing other business, he had his own products too. So then we started maybe even selling his products on our phone calls. And then he also wanted to do infomercials, right? So I brought him in and we did infomercials, for his products. So yeah, it's hard to sometimes think about that. You're like, wow, man, why would I hurt my own revenue, in the short term? But in the long term, you're developing, again, what I talk about in the book is that connection capital. You're adding value, and you're developing a relationship. You're developing like a friendship. And then, like you talked about earlier, like today, you might not be able to see it, right? It doesn't make sense today, but tomorrow it probably does.
It really is planting for your future. Now, in your book, you talk about something I was so thrilled to read this part about pre-qualifying, because I can't tell you how many times I've had that discussion with agents when I was a sales manager in regards to that. And I'd love for you to touch on pre-qualifying.
Yeah, I tell you, right out of college, I had an opportunity to sell cars, and I call it an opportunity today, but before I was just like, man, I just needed a job. I grew up poor. I just needed to make money, and I was not interested in selling cars. And I tell you, it was one of the best decisions I ever made. And I learned about the sales process. I learned that, truly all of us are salespeople, but I really understand. I was really taught the sales psychology, and I worked for a Ford Lincoln Mercury dealership, and so, a huge multinational, multi-billion-dollar company. They have a great process, right? They have a sales process. And they showed us the process. And when you when you veered off that process, things didn't work, right? So, but if you stayed in within the process, things worked. And when we talk about pre-qualifying, it's very, very difficult as human beings to look at something and not pre-qualify. And I have so many stories, about pre-qualifying. But one of the stories I tell in the book, it was me and this other salesman were standing there in the showroom at the set. I don't even know. I think it was a Saturday. It was busy. It was hot. It was hot out. And we had this. You see this young kid. He gets out of his car. And he's in a baseball uniform. And he's literally has dirt on his knees. And he's literally in a baseball uniform. He comes in and he has this flyer that we could see. It was a flyer that we sent out for a car called the Mercury Cougar, right? And so he comes in and he says, I want this car. And the flyer is, what we all call it was a lead generator, right? It was designed to get him through the door. Okay, so you come in with a low offer. It's a real offer. You can get this car if you want. It was like $250 a month. Here it is. Here's the car. And then as he's walking through, the other salesman I was with, this quote seasoned salesman, was like, you know what? I don't want to deal with this kid. I'm not, like, he's in a baseball uniform. I'm not gonna. Now I kind of didn't know any better because I was new. So I said, well, I'll talk to him. So I start talking to him, and I bring him all back and I show him all the cars, and he points to like the most expensive Mercury Cougar. He's like, that's the one I want. And I said, all right, well, let's take it for a drive. And I follow the process, right? We had a 10-step process. I do the whole thing. I bring him in the showroom. I sit him down, and the payments were like, 2 or 3 times the amount of what the ad that had come in. And that made me nervous because, I couldn't pay for that at the time. I was like, there's no way I could make those payments. And it also taught me right then and there, one of my managers said to me, don't think with your wallet, okay? Don't think with your bank account. You have no idea, who you're talking to. And that kid that was, in a baseball uniform who still had dirt on his knees, he said to me, he said, well, I need to bring the payment down. What if I gave you, $3,500 down? And again, me being naive, not really understanding how even the whole sales process worked, I said, I'm going back and forth with my manager, the classic car sales thing. And I go to him, he goes to me, we're going back and forth. Long story short, I made about $1,500 on that deal. Okay, and some people might feel bad about it, but there was nothing wrong. This kid still got a great deal. He got the car he wanted. I followed the process, and I didn't pre-qualify. There's another car sales one. I had a guy, these people come in from California, and I'll try to shorten it. They came in from California. They came in this beat-up Jeep Cherokee. There was like 4 or 5 of them in there. I couldn't tell who was the buyer, and it was in the middle of the winter, and we had the Lincoln Navigator, and for whatever reason, I sold a ton of those things, and they wanted to go for test drives, and I had a bad experience with somebody from California prior to that. So I had already pre-qualified these people, and I said, I don't want to deal with them. They're just going to waste my time. I mean, why are you here in Massachusetts all the way from California? It didn't make any sense to me. Well, me going through the whole pre-qualifying thing, and I really just wanted to throw them out of the showroom, but I didn't. I followed the process. I tried to stick to it as best I could. I did make some mistakes. Long story short, this guy that was here, he was here from L.A. His name is Stan Cottrell. Okay, he's a world-renowned architect. He was here coming from L.A. to buy a castle in Gloucester. He was in Architectural Magazine. I didn't know him from a hole in the wall. The guy was a bazillionaire. But if I had really just stuck to my pre-qualifying ways and just essentially thrown him out of the showroom, I would have lost a ton of money and developed a friendship. The guy ended up being a nice friend.
Oh, my goodness. Well, it's so interesting how that happens. I can remember many times where I'd have sales agents I was working with, they'd be like, well, this is a bad time. They're probably at lunch, or they probably close early, or whatever the case is when we would do cold calling. And we would go in, and the manager would be like, gosh, I've been waiting for somebody to come and help us with this, and it was just interesting, these stories that a lot of times we make up in our head that has nothing to do with the reality of what's going on.
And we all do it. That's another thing, too, to recognize, right? We all do it. I don't care how good of a salesperson you are. I don't care how well trained you are. You are human. You forget. And sometimes you pre-qualify. You make excuses on why you didn't make a particular cold call or why you didn't do this or why you do that. I still do it, okay? We all do it. And as long as you can recognize that and just put yourself in check, your life will change, dramatically. And we're talking a lot about business too, right? But this type of mentality also works in your personal life too. Like you didn't do a particular thing, or it's like the classic thing where a guy's just been checking out a girl for months or whatever, and he just doesn't want to talk to her because he believes this, and this, or even the opposite. A woman wants to talk to her. She believes that this, and this. He doesn't like me. He doesn't like the way I look. I'm not pretty. But whatever it is, you're building up these preconceived notions and pre-qualifiers and making excuses for why you're not doing something. Just go ahead and do it. Now, what's the worst that's going to happen, right? In sales, they're going to say no. And you know what? You know how many married couples in this country where the woman said no like a million times? You know what I mean? So, you just have to just do it. You have to go out there and don't be afraid of the no. People always talk about no's. They say, well, these salespeople I always hear, they say, I love it when someone says no. Nobody loves being told no. I don't care who you are. You don't like being told no. They say, no, I like it. And I said, why? They said, because I'm that much closer to a yes. Okay, I get that. I don't buy into that because it doesn't feel good. But once you become accustomed to the no and understanding that it's a reality. It's probably 80% of the time you're going to hear a no, and you can train yourself, and you can work through the process and understand rebuttals and all these other things. Those no's that you're getting, you then can convert them and turn them into yeses.
Well, and to kind of pivot a little bit, I think we have enough time to cover this. You had talked in your book about the mistake that business owners make when they make money, and I'd love for you to share some of that with us.
Are you referring to when they make money and they don't know what to do with it and they buy a bunch of stuff they shouldn't? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the things that I learned, early, I grew up poor, literally with nothing, and electricity shut off, state housing, WIC, food stamps. All the stuff that you hear from a lot of people. And so, I've always yearned for money. I've always wanted to have, the freedom and not have to worry about how much things cost. And, and I'm fortunate enough to be where I am today, where that's pretty much a reality, but the thing is that just because you're doing millions in revenue, right? Just because you're doing hundreds of thousands in revenue doesn't give you, essentially the right to just go out and buy a bunch of stuff that you can't afford. Even though you're in the top 1%, maybe you're making $1 million a year, and that's a great income and for pretty much anywhere in the world. But making $1 million a year, what happens is your lifestyle starts to change, right? You start to buy more things. You start to, have bigger bills. And I tell people all the time, I say, really the difference between me and some of the people working in my call center is just my bills are a little bit higher, and that's really tough to admit. To be like, well, hold on a second here, Mike. What do you mean? I said, well, look, I've built a great lifestyle that I'm accustomed to. So now I have to maintain, that type of activity. I have to maintain, that type of income, right? You start making millions of dollars. It doesn't mean you should just go out and buy all these things that you can't afford. You need to really step back and think about it. When I look at some of my old, people that I've worked for and people that I've seen throughout history, you see it all the time in like the entertainment world, right? Where like all these movie stars, right? And they just live the lifestyle that's truly seems like a movie. And then you always hear how they always end up declaring bankruptcy or that they sell this and sell that because they weren't paying attention to the realities of it. Just because you're doing $20 million a year doesn't mean that's profit. That $20 million a year, you're lucky if there's $2 million profit there. That's a great profit. 10% is a great profit. You're probably not doing much better than that, even if you're like a movie star.
Yeah. A lot of times people don't realize the more money you make, usually it's just that you have a bigger boat to float. Because you've got employees to pay, bigger office, you name it. So it's interesting. I found that your advice was so well put and right on target when it comes to that, because most people don't even consider it's like, I'm making more money, let's go spend it. It's like, no, don't do that.
It's hard. And by the way, and again, I just, the book is the most honest book I believe that entrepreneurs will ever read. And it's very, very hard when you start making that kind of money, especially when you have nothing, to not do stuff. Like I probably bought watches that I shouldn't have. And I make the mistakes, and so that's also a reality. But you just, as long as you can check yourself and realize, all right, well, I made that mistake. Well, how am I going to make up for it? I just bought this $40,000 watch. What am I going to do to make up for it? Well, I bought that means I'm not going to get paid for a couple months. Whatever it is, as long as you're aware of kind of what's going on. And again, I've made, you've read the book. The first page of the book, I talk about, I'm in this beautiful house that I built. I'm in my pool. I'm with my girlfriend. We're getting ready to go out on the boat, and I start getting text messages from people that I owe small amounts of money to, and it freaked me out. And I made a big mistake, and so I tell that story. I say, look, and hopefully it'll never happen again. And that's just, we try and learn from our mistakes and move forward.
Yeah. Well, Michael, oh my gosh, your book, Blueprint to Business, is such a great resource. I highly suggest anyone that's in business, thinking about business, or just wanting to learn how to be better at the work that you do, pick up their own copy. Where can our listeners connect with you and be part of your community?
Sure. They can find me. It's at Mike Alden, MikeAlden 2012. I'm on Snapchat. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Facebook, Instagram. That's essentially the handle. You can also go to michael-alden.com to my website. You can sign up for my inner circle where people actually, I actually give people free stuff, free gifts, books, supplements, electronics, all sorts of stuff. And the book is available everywhere. It's Books A Million, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, your local independent store. It's available everywhere.
Oh, well, Michael, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Okay, we're going to pause here for a quick break, and we'll be right back after these messages.
Internationally recognized and award-winning author Judy Goodman works and teaches outside the box of limited thinking. Working with people from every walk of life, her goal is to empower you to be the best you can be, no matter what the challenge is. Born with the gift of seeing beyond our normal vision, she has an extraordinary gift of working with every challenge. Teaching beyond conventional wisdom, her work is described as life-changing. Visit judygoodman.com. That's judygoodman.com.
Have you ever had the sense that your thoughts might actually be doing something? Ancient secrets of manifesting have been masterfully revealed in the award-winning book Manifesting 123 by Ken Elliott. For the first time, the author's experiences and stories in this book describe exactly how your thoughts can create anything. You've been doing this all your life, but it's never been fully explained for you until now. Visit manifesting123.com for more information today. Manifesting123.com.
This is Jennifer McGill. My highly anticipated new album, Unbreakable, is now available at jennifermcgill.com. Everything from power ballads to high-energy jam-out-in-your-car songs. I used my highest joys and deepest pains to create empowering songs of love, strength, healing, and restoration so that you can be unbreakable too. Get your copy of Unbreakable today from jennifermcgill.com. Because who doesn't want to be unbreakable?
The highly acclaimed and newly released book, The Hand Part 2 by Lynn Van Praagh Grattan, describes the journey between a psychic medium and a family who lost a son. Messages from Beyond Eternity's Gate is of love and healing. For more information, visit www.lynnvanpraagh-grattan.com. That's www.lynnvanpraagh-grattan.com.
Welcome back to Moments with Marianne. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to be an author? Our next guest, Denise Jaden, is here today to talk to us about her new book, Story Sparks. So Denise wrote her debut novel, Losing Faith, in 21 days during a writing competition in 2007. And she loves to talk to writers and students alike about drumming up story ideas for your own novel. She's an actress on TV and in movies and dances with a Polynesian dance troupe. So let's welcome to the show, Denise.
Thank you. It's great to be here. What a pleasure it is to have you here. So I have to ask you, I've got my hands on your fabulous book. What was the inspiration behind your, not just your writing career, but the book itself, Story Sparks?
Well, I can trace back all of my books to a specific little seed of an idea, but I have to say with Story Sparks that I can't really trace it back, except to say that I speak to a lot of writers, and it was early on that I noticed that was something that really interested me. So writers one of their first questions to me would usually be during question and answer time, they were asking, where do you get your story ideas? And I like telling stories about where their ideas came from and stuff like that. But I always wanted to turn the question back on them and say, well, where do you guys get your story ideas? Because I've always found it very, very interesting. So, and the amount of places, I mean, I just couldn't even count the amount of places that people get their story ideas. Everybody's different. So I love that idea.
I think it's so fun to hear where people get their inspiration from.
Yeah, it is. It is a great, I mean, people will tell stories and go on, and I'll have to actually interrupt them because, you know, people love to bring to life where their ideas have come from.
And do that share. Now, what are some ways that writers can prepare themselves to get into action to start writing?
Well, one of the biggest things that I suggest is to just train yourself to become a good observer of your surroundings. Because we all have things that get us out of the house, and we have to leave and be out in the world, whether it's a job or school or taking care of kids or whatever you're doing. But you're out in the world, and there are story ideas all around us, and there's creative energy all around us. And so if we just take the time to notice the little things around us, then you'll never be stuck once you're actually sitting in the chair behind the computer.
So what if someone says, well, I've done all that, but I still feel like I've got this stuck going on? What would your advice be then?
You know, I have a lot of ideas in Story Sparks, but off the top of my head, I would say you could use writing prompts, which I have some on my website, and there's lots in Story Sparks. Sometimes it's just taking a couple of ideas and not waiting for the perfect idea, but just getting started with a couple of ideas, combining them together. Even if they don't seem like they go together, sometimes that makes the best stories because you have to really dig deep to find a way to work them in together, and it becomes something that you've never read before, which is kind of cool. So I would say starting with what you have is the biggest thing. I think that usually people that face writer's block or feel like they're stuck, it's that they're waiting for something too big and too grand. And if they just got started with what they had, they would be surprised how far it would take them.
Now, did you always want to become a writer, or is that something that just kind of happened?
No, that's actually fairly new. I've only been writing for maybe 14 or 15 years. And I'm a lot older than that. And as a teenager and a young person, I didn't enjoy even reading, and I certainly didn't enjoy writing. I was never a journaler. Really, if you'd asked me back then, do you think you'll ever become a writer, I would have laughed because it was so far out of my wheelhouse. And I actually kind of blame it on pregnant brain. When I was pregnant with my son, all of a sudden, I felt this desire to start writing things down, journaling, telling stories, all sorts of stuff. I would just start to get things on paper or on the computer, and it became addictive, so I didn't want to stop.
I think that's where great inspiration has come from, because if we look at, like, the Harry Potter series, I mean, they were kind of just started by someone who, she didn't, she wasn't a writer. She kind of dove right into it.
Yes. Yeah, not everybody grows up as a writer, but a lot of writers I know do. But the one thing I love is because I do a lot of writing for young adults and for teens, and I love that I didn't grow up as a writer or a real strong reader. I was more of a reluctant reader because I can talk to those teens about that kind of situation and talk to them about finding something that they love rather than just spending their time doing what they have to do as far as reading or writing.
Now, you focus both on fiction and nonfiction, is that correct?
Yes, I do.
What's your favorite to write between the two?
I would definitely say that fiction is my first love. I don't actually consider myself a nonfiction writer, even though I have 3 nonfiction books out there in the world. They've all been specific moments, specific ideas that have come to me that I couldn't seem to get out of my brain, and things that I really thought could help writers from the writers that I was talking to. And so I felt like they came at very specific times when I could just sit down and just pour out everything I knew and do a little bit of research and pour out a little bit more of what I knew and bring it all together into books. So I did that 3 times, the 3 nonfiction books. But I don't, at this point, foresee myself writing a lot more nonfiction. I just had those 3 ideas that came at specific times, and that I wanted to write. But I could write, I'm pretty sure I will write fiction till the end of my life because I just love it. It's just, creating story worlds is, it's just a joy to me.
So when you are working and you're holding workshops for people to become writers, are you working with people at all stages in their writing career, maybe people who are new writers and some that maybe have been doing it for a little while?
Yes, definitely. Well, I do a lot of talks within the school system because my books are aimed at young adults. So I do a lot of talks to kids who are really just starting out. And
here I thought you just wrote your book so it was easy for me to read.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. But yeah, I've also done some more master type classes for skilled and more advanced writers. So that's always fun too. I get to delve a little deeper.
Okay. Well, and so when I picked up your book and I was going through it, I could see where it is for maybe younger people they're looking to get into writing and just kind of figure out like what's balance and what am I supposed to do and how am I supposed to structure this and all that great stuff. But is that your intended audience or is it just for anybody?
I think it's for anybody. I think mostly it is for the writer who feels like they get stuck. Whether it's a new writer or a really seasoned writer that still feels like they get stuck, I hope that my book helps them take the pressure off and helps them get excited about ideas again and just takes that pressure off of trying to find the perfect idea and instead just allowing their own individual creativity to come forth.
And kind of just get in that flow. That's kind of one of the things that you hear about writers all the time is they get that creative block or they get in a story and get stuck. And so I know that you offer like little games and different things that they can do to, like how we were talking initially, to kind of move themselves into a place where writing's fun as opposed to, I have to do this story and my gosh, I'm stuck,
Exactly. I for sure recommend, if you're feeling just really blocked and at a standstill, to even just get yourself to sit down and write one sentence. Even if it's just the one sentence and you don't write anything else until tomorrow and then you write another sentence tomorrow, I promise that forward momentum will grow and it will get easier. But if you avoid your story, it'll just get harder.
So what is, like, if someone's really, they're really good at procrastinating, what is one of the other favorite activities that you have that would kind of help people move things along?
Well, I don't know what I have in my book though. I can't remember. But I know for my own personal self, I definitely face procrastination a lot. I think, first of all, understanding procrastination when it comes to creativity is important. I think that we make our creative work into this big monster, and we think it's going to be big and scary, and if we just face up to the monster, it's actually not big and scary. In fact, he's quite cuddly and friendly, and he'll help you along with your work. But I think that the longer that we spend pushing away our creative ventures, the harder it gets to be creative. At least the harder it gets in our mind. We build up a block, and the block gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And so to fight off procrastination, I make all sorts of deals with myself. Like, I'm not allowed to check my email until I've written a chapter. I'm not allowed to go on social media until I've finished a certain amount of something. I tell myself regularly that being creative is more important than having a clean house, because that could be an easy procrastination for me. So for me to get past procrastination, I make a lot of deals with myself that I have to kind of live up to. Some people need accountability from others, but I'm very determined to keep to my own integrity with myself, I guess.
Well, it's kind of fun when you create these, like fun little tasks to do, and then it's like, okay, I've done this now. Gosh, that was really quick. I already finished the chapter. Do it. Have myself a cup of coffee and then move on to the next thing.
Exactly. I'm a real goal setter. I never used to be, but the more that I set goals, the more I love doing it. The more I feel that real sense of accomplishment on the other end. So, yeah, it works for me.
You're kind of able to move through that. So now, for someone who's looking to do writing as a full-time job, what would that day look like?
Well, I think that it depends on what kind of writing you're doing. If you're writing novels, some people have a really long attention span, or what's that called? They just have the ability to write stories for really, really long time. I'm not that way so much. I can usually write for an hour at a shot. I need to go for a walk or something to kind of break it up. If you're writing nonfiction, I think it can be a little easier to put in a long day at writing nonfiction, because a lot of that is going to be research and fleshing out ideas, and not so much just the single train of getting through the story.
Yeah.
So you can pop around a little bit, and it doesn't hurt the scope of the book, which is kind of nice. So I would say that a big part of a writer's day job, though, is also promotion and being online and meeting fans and answering questions and, doing radio shows like this, and just being available to your readers. It's kind of a different world than maybe 20 years ago when authors went on big book tours and then they sat at home and became recluse for the next, however long to put out a new book. So I think we're very social beings now, which is a good thing. And so that's a big part of my day, and just going out and speaking to other writers, speaking to readers, stuff like that is, also takes up a big part of my time. So
in doing all those promotions, a lot of times when people think of writing, they don't think about that part of the marketing, like, hey, I have to be engaged.
Yeah, I think, like I say, I think it's a different world than it was, 20 or even 10 years ago as far as publishing goes. So readers have gotten to the point where I think they expect some interaction with their favorite authors. And like I say, because I'm a writing teacher as well, I love that. I love that the readers of my writing books feel like they can contact me and ask me questions, and I love being able to answer them, especially online where other people hopefully can engage with the conversation as well.
Yeah, and you kind of have that synergy kind of going back and forth, and who knows what that's going to create. You get some really great ideas from the readers.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, so let's say someone is, so they've worked through procrastination. They're not really stuck, but, they're not sure if they should draw up, like, a plan for the book or not. Do you do, like, an outline before you get started?
I do. I actually have another of my nonfiction books is called Fast Fiction, and in that book I help writers plan out how to be able to write a first draft in a month. And that's the kind of plan that I usually follow for my fiction. And so I have what's called a story plan in there. And the whole first section of the book helps you form that story plan. And the second section of the book is helping you write every day, helping you get your word count up, helping you not feel stuck. And then the third part is revision. But the first part, forming that story plan, to me, is essential. And I actually have a sample of my story plan on my website at denisejaden.com, so people can go there and they can download it and feel free to use it, have it for their own use and photocopy it, whatever.
Well, that's good. That way they can kind of use that to kind of jumpstart where they're going to go with their book.
Exactly.
Sometimes that could be, I've heard of people going, well, I just start from the end, or, and I've always wondered, like, how do you do that?
Yeah, I know. I don't really understand that myself. Although I actually have had books that have kind of come to me in the middle, and then I have to work around to find the beginning and the end and stuff like that. So I think every book can be different too. But for me, having a story plan at least means that I don't have to get stuck. I'll have a plan to go back to if I all of a sudden feel like, oh, where am I going? So you can still write by the seat of your pants, but you have a plan to go back to if you feel stuck. That's what it is, really.
be able to kind of hop back and forth. So with the so now, do you go around, like you were talking earlier that you do quite a bit of teaching? This is more geared for younger individuals. Your book is Story Spark. Do you go around to different schools and teach on this? How do you get this word out in regards to how to better create a book?
Well, Story Spark specifically, I don't necessarily go into the schools with, and I wouldn't say that it's necessarily just for younger people. Like I just recently did a talk to a group that was mostly seniors, and they really loved all the games that I came up with Story Sparks and stuff like that. So I do a lot of games when I do hands-on teaching, which I think is really fun for everybody. It makes them see that the writing can be fun, and that coming up with story ideas and turning them into full-fledged stories, that whole idea can be fun if you let it be fun.
Yeah, it's just about getting in the flow.
Yeah, it's good for writers of any age, though, really.
Now, you have other books on writing, isn't that correct?
I do, yes. So I have fast fiction, which came from my experience with NaNoWriMo, which is a worldwide challenge, basically, for writers. And you sign up, and it's totally free, but your aim is to write a 50,000-word first draft of a novel within a month. And so I did that for several years. Each November, I tried to write a first draft in a month. And I found that I got so many questions about that when I was talking to other writers, and I had a lot of ideas for them because I completed it each year. And I'm very goal-driven, and I like that, that side of me was growing. And so I thought, I think I could write a book about this. I think I have enough information that would be helpful to other writers that they would get a lot out of it. So that's where fast fiction came from. And I also have another nonfiction book called Writing with a Heavy Heart, and it's how to bring deep emotion into your writing. And that actually grew out of a lot of personal stuff in my life. I was a new writer, learning the whole ropes of getting publishable work. During that time, a lot of different personal things hit in my life. My dad died suddenly, and several things all at once. And I just felt like I was understanding how to infuse that into my writing. And I thought, I think first of all, it started with a workshop, just like all the rest of them. And at the workshop, I felt like I had so much to share that it was more than just the workshop. So I thought, I think I better write this down. And it grew and grew and grew, and then soon enough, I had a book. So, so I got those 3 books.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, I think that authors, especially, when people are filled with such sorrow or such heartache from life's tragedies, it's nice to be able to get that out one way or another, and writing is a great way of doing it.
It is. It really is. I recommend it to anybody. It can be so cathartic, and it can also enrich other people's lives.
Yeah. It might be something you just write and that's yours, or something that you actually share with other folks. So.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, and so where do you see your writing career going from here? Like, what's next on the docket for you?
Well, I have to say that I'm not as focused on my writing career as I am on family right now. I have a 14-year-old, and I've been homeschooling him up to this point. And so this year we're just doing a little bit of transitioning with him, cross-enrolling with public school and that sort of thing. And it's taking a lot of my focus. And I have done some homeschool classes for writing for him and his friends and stuff like that. So that's really helped out in that area to keep him learning and keep us connected, which has been nice. But yeah, I just feel like I'm quite busy these days. And so I'm still writing in the background, but I don't feel like I'm in any rush to put out new books. And so when I have one, I'll have one. And that's kind of, it's not a real career mindset, but it's working for me right now. So.
Well, it's like life will move and adjust, especially around writing. It's something you could take up, and like how you're saying, you obviously, with fast fiction, you're able to get together a quick book, and now, it's time to kind of take it a step back a little bit and focus on other things.
Exactly. And I still plan to write a novel in November, but I don't know how long it'll take me after that to revise it and make it publishable. So, things are always in the works, but I don't have a real strong plan as far as that goes.
Yeah. It just kind of will flow as it flows.
Exactly.
Well, and so do you have any upcoming workshops?
I don't at the moment. I'm trying to think. I have a newsletter that I put out specifically for writers, and I've been working really hard on that because I have a plan to have a daily email go out through November, where it'll inspire them hopefully to be able to write every day and get maybe an entire novel written during November, or at least more writing than they would have otherwise. So that's kind of my plan for that. So if people are interested, through my website, again, at denisejaden.com, they can sign up for my writer's newsletter. And that's my biggest focus, I guess, right now for other writers and for workshops.
Well, Denise, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us here today. I really appreciate you spending your time with us. And gosh, everyone needs to go pick up their own copy of Story Sparks.
Oh, thanks, Marianne. Thanks so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Well, that's the end of our time today. I'd like to thank everyone for taking the time to tune in. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne. And remember, make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Moments with Marianne airs every Thursday, Friday, and Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Mountain Time. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.